Alright, what's up you guys? Welcome to another action figure review, as today we're going to be looking at the 2024 30th anniversary StreetShARK's Big SLAMMU or SLAMMU figure, which is also considered to be the biggest out of the four Bolton brothers. So let's go ahead and unbox this figure and see how great it really is. And of course, looking at the packaging first, it says Super Slam Fist, which is basically his gimmick from the old 90s vintage Mattel version. It says Big SLAMMU there, but I like to call him usually just regular SLAMMU. It says Try Me, it says I Bite from Mattel. This side he's in the cage. Again, Big SLAMMU on the back, which is actually really cool. It shares more of the other figures released within this wave. Now we're still waiting for the other figure Slopster, which I guess will be in the other wave moving forward. But we have majority of the main figures of the Bolton brothers and Dr. Paranoid and Slash. Really awesome mural right there, which I love. And we can see the gimmick for SLAMMU, which is pretty cool. And then the little cutout, which I'll show you in a little bit. And on this side, we can see a cool little mock-up of SLAMMU. Nice little shark cage. And since he is the biggest out of the four figures, his positioning of his feet look pretty funny, but other than that, let's go ahead and crack it open. So I'm really excited about this guy. Okay, now we officially have SLAMMU out of the packaging, and we can see him busting his head out of the shark cage, which does look really awesome. And there are going to be some nitpicks here and there, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but other than that, we can see here from the positioning of how big he is, he's kind of crunched in there, but hopefully the figure turns out to be as good as I expected. So let's go ahead and crack him open. Alright, and here we have Big SLAMMU out of the package, and I will say again, it's another fantastic looking figure within the StreetShARK's line. Now there are some nitpicks that I mentioned before in terms of how I really wanted this figure to be, but it does pay a good homage to the old original Mattel figure, which we'll look at a comparison near the end of the review. But we can see here that one of the things that I really wished about the StreetShARK's figures is that, I know it's paying respect to the old vintage versions, but I really would have wished that they kind of did more body proportions in terms of having, longer feet and, having the upper torso being a little more slimmed down, but still having that same muscular versions, and then having the feet be a little more proportioned, as we know that these Mattel StreetShARK's figures have really big upper torsos but really tiny legs. So when they said they were making a comeback, I was kind of wishing that they did more proportionate sizing to the figures, but again, you can't really go wrong if you haven't bought the original versions. But here we can see from his face sculpt that I'm not really a fan of the two eyes because it looks very wonky despite it looking accurate in terms of, they're placed properly. But I did kind of wish that they looked a little more centered or, more menacing in that sense. But again, I know it's more accurate. Now, in terms of the cartoon, it's not considered as accurate as I wished it could be. But, again, it's really okay. But if you position the figure sideways, that's when the figure looks absolutely incredible. And that's where the figure shines the most because he's really good at looking, again, more sideways rather than straight forward. So, again, it's not bad. We can see he does have these little cool dots here being a whale shark. And then the gimmick here, of course, you press down the fin so it moves the mouth up and down, which is really awesome. That jawsome gimmick that the original version had. Texture of all the rubber came out really nice. It's as good as it can be. It still has like that shiny paint apps to the figures, which is really good. Musculature is really awesome. Veins are popping out very nice. On the back here, we can see a lot of the veins sticking out here, which is really good. There is a slight little paint nick right there, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. And then he does have articulation where you can move his arms up and down. And like the original version, he does have the gimmick right here where you just move the right arm up and down and just slams it. So that's really cool. Again, pun for the SLAMMU name. He does have articulation at the elbows, which is more single, but that's okay. He does have wrist articulation, which is awesome. And you can move the arms outward, which is really great. So it gives you more of a nice dynamic pose. And it's very nice and stiff. So we got one fisted arm and one kind of an open hand, which is great. The bottom here, we can see that he does have the football outfit as he does play sports in the animated series. So he has a nice red stripe, some padding there on the legs. One of the things I will say I'm not a fan of these new versions is that the feet are kind of weird in the sense of, yeah, they are articulated, so you can see there are some bending right there in the knee joints, which is pretty cool. But they're not the most sturdiest, and I wish that they looked a little more. It feels like the legs will snap right out of the pegs the more you try to pivot with these feet. But you know, there's not much you can really do. I wish it was a little better designed. It feels a little on the cheaper side, but I guess it is what it is for the price point. You can see he does have his cleats and all that stuff, which is really cool. And then the high socks with the blues, the string right there to hold up his pants, and the belt, and all that looking really good. He has that nice little beige against the browns, very good coloring. I will give them credit that the coloring and all the paint apps is very, very, very clean on these figures, because you can see how the stripes is just looking fantastic. Even on the back, it's very, very clean, so try not to get, you know, your hands dirty. But you can do these really cool, awesome poses in terms of, you know, because he does like the seismic slam, and that's what makes the figure like one of the coolest ones out of the Bolton brothers, because he's like a force to reckon with, and being the biggest Bolton brother out of the four. But yeah, overall I think it's a very, very solid figure, and maybe they could have done some detailing here in the pants in terms of some shading, but again, they're paying respect to the old Mattel figure, so we will see what comes out later on in the future. But for now, in terms of paying respect to the old figures, this will do pretty well. So, alright, and now for one of the more exciting parts of the review, let's take a look at his old original Mattel version and see how it holds up. Will this figure be better than the original? Let's check it out. Alright, and here you have my original 90s Mattel StreeXshark's SLAMmu figure, and here we have the 2024 30th anniversary SLAMmu figure. So, here's the thing, I kind of like both versions, but at the same time, they're both, I guess, part of the weakest figure of the set of four Bolton brothers. I'm not sure how to really explain this, but you can see the comparison in terms of how they got the body proportions in terms of, you know, slimmer body here where it's more thicker here, still smaller legs, but he can stand upright and he is a bit taller, sturdier or stubbier legs, and, you know, more sturdier plastic compared to these new ones. And of course you can't necessarily move the hands outwards, as the gimmick kind of just gives you like that up and down slam fist, which is really nice. Same hand that does it. The left hand is also like more of a closed fist. I guess they kind of wanted to change it up a bit, which is pretty cool. You can see that it does have the same spots right there on the top, which is awesome. And even looking at the facial features, we can see that the right version, or the old 90s version, has more of a crooked face compared to the newer one, as it's more straightforward, which I do like. In terms of the teeth, we can see, even though this has been played with, you can see a lot of the paint damage, which is okay. But the teeth here, you know, they cleaned it up a lot more on the new version compared to the old one. The pink stands out a lot more in terms of the gums on the actual figure, and they did use a different shade of beige for the torso, which is fine. And other than that, yeah, the figure still holds up. The yellows are pretty cool. Can see a slight difference in terms of the pants, because he has more of stripes right there on the old version compared to the new one, which is more of a single solid stripe, and kind of like a lighterish blue compared to the darker blue here. And they did give him some red stripes right there on the feet compared to the old one, or the shoes I should say. And other than that, I think for the most part it still holds up as a really decent solid figure. So they did add some great additions to the figure to kind of make it stand out and pop out a little bit more. And even looking at it from this side, again, having the figure stand on the sides is actually a lot cooler than having it look straightforward. But for what it is, the gills all looking nice, and the sculpting of the muscles is very great for what it is. So and just quickly looking at the back of the figure, all the veins, you see they really did pay attention to most of the figure. So yeah, so aside from adding some different little stylistic attempts to the figure to kind of make it a little bit more modern, is a very nice touch. But I would still say this is probably one of, you know, not my favorite out of the Bolton brothers, just in general, even with this guy and this guy. They still needed to make a cartoon accurate version. I hope one day where they can give us some more of a revamp of StreetShARKs, but again, this is a solid addition if you don't own the first original version. And again, you can see a little more of a curve right there by the nose. This one's a more solid straight line, and then everything else is roughly the same. And yeah, aside from the face being a little more crooked, it's still a solid looking figure. So yeah, if I were to guess between which one's my favorite out of these two, I would probably still go with the original 90s version. But again, I'm very happy to say at least StreetShARKs is making an awesome comeback. Alright you guys, here we have the 2024 30th anniversary Mattel Big SLAMMU figure, and then we have the original 90s version from Mattel as well. So overall, I would say the figure is pretty awesome, and it does hold up between having a brand new version, but I will say that the old version still makes it better to have in terms of nostalgia. But again, if you're a big fan of the StreetShARKs like me and love having variants of even modern updated versions, then it's one of the best times, especially with the animated series being one of my favorites growing up watching as a kid. So can't go wrong. Definitely try to invest in the old one, but the new one still holds up as a great addition to your line if you're looking for some awesome anthropomorphic, especially with sharks being my favorite animal. So these characters are freaking badass. I love it, and I think it's a great addition into my collection. So with that said, I want to thank you all for watching. Be sure to give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next episode.